Harrison Stone always believed there was a solution to everything. You just needed enough resources, the right mind, and the necessary determination. At 42, he had built an empire in Silicon Valley. His artificial intelligence company was worth billions. His name appeared on magazine covers. Investors lined up to speak with him. Harrison had gotten there alone, or at least that's what he told himself. He grew up in Detroit, son of a steelworker who lost his job when the factories closed. Harrison was 11 when he saw his father cry for the first time, sitting at the kitchen table with bills piled in front of him. That night, Harrison made a silent promise. He would never be vulnerable like that, would never depend on anyone, would never be at the mercy of forces he couldn't control. So he studied relentlessly, earned a full scholarship to Stanford, and worked 18 hours a day until his vision blurred. He founded his first startup at 23, sold it for $20 million at 26, then founded the second one. That one didn't sell. It grew into a giant. Harrison lived on top of a San Francisco skyscraper in a penthouse overlooking the bay that cost $45 million. Every morning followed the same pattern. Wake at 5, run 6 miles, drink a green shake prepared by his personal chef, arrive at the office by 7. He controlled everything from his diet to his schedule to his relationships. Even his emotions were managed with the precision of an algorithm. But Harrison couldn't control cancer. The diagnosis came on an ordinary Tuesday. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. 3 months, the doctors said. Maybe 6 if he was lucky. Harrison refused to accept it. Doctors were wrong all the time. Statistics applied to ordinary people, not to men who had conquered impossible challenges before. He hired the best oncologist in the world, flew to Switzerland for experimental treatment, and spent $4 million at a clinic in Japan that promised miraculous results with nanotechnology. Nothing worked. 3 weeks after the diagnosis, the pain started. At first it was just a nuisance, pressure in his abdomen that he could ignore during meetings. Then it grew, transforming into claws tearing at his insides. The morphine helped for a few hours before the pain came back, stronger each time. The doctors increased the dose, then increased it again. Harrison began living in a state of chemical fog, floating between agony and stupor. He stopped going to the office, delegating everything to his VP while he received doctors at home. They paraded through his minimalist living room of marble and glass, specialist after specialist, each one saying variations of the same thing. "We're sorry. There's nothing more we can do." Harrison Stone, the man who had solved impossible problems, who had built an empire from nothing, was dying. There was no app for that. No investment that could buy more time. No emergency meeting that could reverse the diagnosis. The anger came first. Harrison smashed his laptop against the wall, screamed at his assistant until she left crying, fired 3 doctors in a single afternoon. But the anger transformed into something worse, into desperation, into fear. It was in this state on a November morning that Harrison first noticed the homeless man. He was on the sidewalk in front of the building, kneeling with his hands together, lips moving silently. An older man, too thin, with graying beard and clothes that looked like they'd been mended dozens of times. His eyes were closed, yet there was a strange peace on his face, a serenity Harrison didn't understand. Harrison stood at the window of his penthouse, watching from above. He wondered vaguely if the man was mentally ill. Why would anyone stay there on the sidewalk praying? To whom? For what? But the homeless man came back the next day, then the next. Always at the same time, around 7 in the morning. Always kneeling, always praying. Harrison ignored him for a week. Then the pain got worse. The morphine wasn't working anymore. He spent nights awake, sweating, gripping the sheets, biting the pillow to keep from screaming. When he finally managed to drag himself to the window each morning, there was the homeless man, calm, serene, praying. Something about it enraged Harrison. How could someone with so little seem so at peace? How could someone who lived on the street, who probably didn't know where his next meal would come from, kneel on the cold sidewalk and smile at the sky? Harrison called building security. "There's a man in front of the building," he said, his voice hoarse from morphine and exhaustion. "A homeless man, I want him removed." The security guard, a man named Carlos who had worked in the building for years, hesitated. Mr. Stone, he's not bothering anyone. He just stays there and I don't care what he's doing, Harrison cut him off. I want him gone. Now. Carlos sighed. Yes, sir. 15 minutes later, Harrison watched Carlos approach the homeless man, talk to him, gesture for him to leave. The homeless man looked up at the glass tower, as if he could see through all the windows to find Harrison. Then he nodded, slowly stood up, and left. Harrison felt victorious for exactly 3 minutes. Then the pain came back with full force, sending him to the bathroom where he spent the next 4 hours vomiting. But the next day at 7 in the morning, the homeless man was back. Harrison couldn't believe it. He called Carlos again. I told you to get that man out of here. I did, Mr. Stone. But the sidewalk is public. I can't stop him from... Then call the police. Sir, he's not committing any crime. He's just... Harrison hung up. His hand was shaking. Not from anger this time, but from something he didn't want to name. Something close to desperation. Why did that homeless man keep coming back? What did he want? The days dragged on like years. Harrison deteriorated in ways he didn't think were possible. He could barely eat. Every attempt ended in violent nausea. His body, once athletic and meticulously maintained, had reduced to skin and bone. Looking at himself in the mirror, he saw a stranger with sunken eyes, hollow cheeks, and skin with a yellowish tinge the doctors called jaundice. Yet every morning, without fail, there was the homeless man, praying. Harrison began watching him obsessively. Between waves of pain and morphine-induced naps, he dragged himself to the window and looked down. The man never asked for money, never bothered pedestrians. He just knelt, closed his eyes and moved his lips in silent prayer. Sometimes he stayed there for hours. Harrison's obsession grew along with his rage. Why did that man keep coming back? What did he gain from it? More importantly, why did he seem so at peace? Harrison hired a private security company, instructing them to remove the homeless man by any means necessary. When the guards arrived, armed and intimidating, the man simply smiled, stood up, and walked away. No resistance, no confrontation. Then came back the next day. Harrison called the police, claiming the man was harassing the building residents. 2 officers showed up, talked to the homeless man, checked his documents. No warrants, no history of violence, just a man praying on a public sidewalk. Sorry, Mr. Stone, one of the officers said when he called back. There's nothing we can do. He's not committing any crime. Harrison punched the wall. Pain exploded in his knuckles, though it was nothing compared to the pain in his abdomen. He screamed in frustration, the sound echoing through the empty penthouse. His assistant had resigned the week before, unable to handle his anger outbursts anymore. His chef left shortly after. Even his cleaning crew had found excuses not to return. Harrison was alone in his palace of glass and marble, dying slowly, while the only human being who seemed to care was a homeless man he'd never met. Then on a Thursday, Harrison woke up and saw something different. The homeless man wasn't there, but something sat at his penthouse door, carefully placed on the welcome mat that no one used anymore. Harrison stumbled to the door, leaning on furniture with each step. It was a piece of cloth, an old rag, dirty, stained reddish-brown, that Harrison immediately recognized as dried blood. A note was attached with a rusty paperclip. The handwriting was shaky, almost illegible. For the man at the top, from someone who knows the bottom. Benjamin. Harrison picked up the rag with 2 fingers, feeling the rough texture. Disgust overcame him. That crazy homeless man had left his filthy rag stained with blood at his door. The rag was probably full of diseases, bacteria, street filth. He threw it in the trash, washed his hands 3 times, and called Carlos. That homeless man, Harrison said, his voice trembling with anger. His name is Benjamin. He left trash at my door. I want a restraining order today. Mr. Stone, Today. When Harrison woke up the next morning, the rag was back. Not the same rag, he realized as he stared at it on the doorstep. A different one, but equally dirty, equally stained. Another note, with the same shaky handwriting. Jesus still heals. Something inside Harrison twisted. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was something closer to panic, a primitive fear he couldn't name. Why wouldn't that man give up? Harrison picked up the rag and threw it out the window, watching it fall 40 floors until it disappeared on the street below. He felt brief satisfaction. Done. Over. On the third day, 3 rags sat piled at the door. Harrison stared at them. His legs shook so much he had to lean on the doorframe. The pain in his abdomen was a living beast now. Not just tearing anymore, but devouring. He had taken enough morphine to knock out a horse, but nothing helped. The doctors had suggested palliative care. Hospice. A polite way of saying, give up. Yet those rags kept appearing, like a nightmare he couldn't wake from. Harrison picked up one of them, examining the stains. They were old, faded by time and perhaps washing, but unmistakable. Human blood. Whose blood was this? Why did Benjamin keep blood-stained rags? Was the man really crazy? Dangerous? But there was something more in the note this time. An additional sentence scribbled underneath. Ask about the woman on 7th Avenue. The woman on 7th Avenue? What woman? Harrison sat on the floor, still holding the rag. His breathing came in short, painful bursts. He could no longer distinguish what was real from morphine-induced hallucination. Maybe there was no homeless man. Maybe there were no rags. Maybe he was already dead, stuck in some kind of purgatory. But the rag in his hand was real. The rough texture, the slightly metallic smell of old blood. Harrison needed to know. He got dressed for the first time in weeks. Every movement was agony. His hands shook so much he couldn't button his shirt. Giving up, he just threw a sweater over it, put on sneakers without socks, and stumbled to the elevator. The lobby was empty except for Carlos, who looked shocked when the elevator doors opened. "Mr. Stone, you shouldn't be." "Where is he?" Harrison interrupted. "Who?" "Benjamin, the homeless man." Carlos hesitated. "He usually stays on the corner of 7th and Market. But sir, you don't look well. Let me call a doctor, or at least—" Harrison ignored him. He pushed through the glass doors and out into the cold November air. The sun was too bright. Everything was too loud, too fast. Cars honked. People moved in fast forward. Harrison stumbled down the sidewalk, leaning on building walls. 7th and Market was 2 blocks away. It might as well have been 2 miles. He found Benjamin sitting in an alley entrance, eating something from a plastic container. The homeless man looked up when Harrison approached, stumbling, pale as a ghost, sweating despite the cold. Benjamin didn't seem surprised. "You," Harrison said, his voice weaker than he intended. "You left those rags." Benjamin nodded calmly. "I did." "Why?" The man studied Harrison for a long moment. His eyes were surprisingly clear, surprisingly kind. There was an intelligence there Harrison didn't expect. "Because God told me to." Harrison almost laughed but didn't have the breath for it. "God told you, of course. Did God also tell you to terrorize me? To leave trash at my door?" "It's not trash," Benjamin said softly. "It's testimony." "Testimony of what? That you're crazy? That God still acts, still heals, still cares?" Harrison's legs buckled. He leaned against the brick wall, slowly sliding down until he sat on the dirty alley floor. "I don't have time for games. I'm dying. You understand that? I'm dying while you're leaving rags at my door." Benjamin put his food container aside. "I know you're dying. Everyone in that building knows. Carlos told me. Said you're the richest man he's ever met, but no amount of money in the world is saving you now. So why the rags? Because you need to know the story behind them." "What story?" Benjamin moved to sit beside Harrison. Up close, Harrison could see the deep wrinkles in his face, the old scars, the fingers deformed by years of cold and hard work. "3 weeks ago," Benjamin began, "I was here, on this corner. A woman was hit by a car that ran a red light. The driver fled. She was bleeding badly from her head, her chest, her arm. People called an ambulance, but we all knew she wouldn't survive. You could see it in her eyes. She was fading." Harrison listened, unable to find words. "I only had this rag," Benjamin continued, holding up a piece of cloth tied around his wrist. "I used it to stop her bleeding, pressed it against the wound on her head, trying to keep her veins closed until help arrived. But it wasn't enough. The blood kept coming. Her eyes were glazed over." "What did you do?" "I prayed, put my hands on her. that rag soaked with blood between my palms and her forehead, asking God to spare her, to give her more time, not to let her children become orphans because I heard someone say she had 3 young kids. What happened? Benjamin smiled, a genuine smile, full of joy. She lived. The paramedics arrived 6 minutes later, and they said it was impossible, that she should have died right there on the sidewalk in all that blood. But when they put her on the stretcher, she was breathing. Weak, but breathing. She woke up in the hospital 2 days later. The doctors can't explain it. They call it a miracle. I call it God. Harrison felt something break inside him. Not physically. Something deeper. Why are you telling me this? Because God told me you need to know that He still heals. I spent millions trying to get healed, Harrison whispered. Traveled the world. Consulted the greatest specialists. Nothing worked. Because you were trying to buy a cure. But God doesn't sell. He gives. I don't believe in God. I know, Benjamin said softly. But He believes in you. He sent me here all those mornings to pray for you. Not because you asked. Not because you deserve it, but because He's merciful. They sat there in silence. Traffic passed. People walked hurriedly, carefully avoiding looking at the 2 men in the alley entrance. A dying billionaire and a wholly homeless man. Harrison Stone, the man who had built an empire, the man who always had all the answers, finally said the 3 hardest words of his life. I need help. Benjamin nodded. I know. He extended his hand. Can I pray for you? Now? Harrison looked at the hand. It was dirty. The nails were broken and blackened. There were old scars on the knuckles, probably from street fights, from extreme cold, from a life Harrison could never imagine. It was the hand of a man who had lost everything but still found something that Harrison, with all his billions, didn't have. Peace. Harrison took Benjamin's hand. Heavenly Father, Benjamin began, his voice soft but carrying a weight Harrison felt vibrate through his bones. This is Harrison. He's afraid. He's in pain. He's trying to control something that was never under his control. He built towers to the sky, but can't build a ladder to save himself from death. Harrison felt tears stinging his eyes. When was the last time he had cried? Show him, Father, Benjamin continued. That surrender isn't defeat. Show him that depending on you isn't weakness but the only true strength. Show him that you don't need his money, his achievements, his intelligence. You only need a willing heart. The tears came now, freely, silently. If it's your will, Lord, heal him. Not because he deserves it, not because he's good, but because you're merciful. Because you see what I see. A terrified man. A man who spent his whole life running from you but who's now ready to stop running. Benjamin squeezed Harrison's hand. In the name of Jesus, who healed the lepers, who gave sight to the blind, who raised Lazarus from death, I ask for Harrison's healing. Not by my will, but by yours. Amen. Amen, Harrison echoed, the word coming out broken, wet with tears. They stayed there for a few more minutes. Then Benjamin helped him stand. Go home, he said gently. Rest. Let God work. Harrison stumbled back to his building. Carlos was waiting in the lobby, eyes wide with concern. He helped Harrison to the elevator, asking no questions, just offering his arm as support. Harrison went up to the penthouse, crossed the living room that no longer seemed so impressive, and fell into bed. For the first time in months, he slept without pain. But when he woke up, it was 3 p.m. and the pain had returned, worse than ever. So intense that Harrison couldn't even scream. He curled into fetal position, clutching his abdomen, wishing to die. Just die. End it. The prayer had been an illusion, a moment of weakness. Of course God wouldn't heal him. Why would God heal someone like him? Someone who had spent his entire life ignoring him. Someone who had built his empire on pride and greed. Harrison reached for the morphine, took double the dose, then triple. It didn't matter anymore. He just wanted the pain to stop. He passed out for hours. When he woke again, it was night. The city glowed below. Millions of lights, millions of lives being lived while his was fading. Harrison stumbled to the window and looked down at the sidewalk where Benjamin prayed every morning. There was someone there now, even in the darkness. Even from the 40th floor, Harrison recognized him. Benjamin, still praying. At 10 at night, in the November cold, with no one around. He was there, praying. For me, Harrison realized. He's praying for me. Something inside him broke. Not the breaking of anger or despair. Something different. A surrender. An opening. Harrison fell to his knees right there in front of the floor-to-ceiling glass window. He didn't know how to pray, had never done it, but he tried. God, he whispered, I don't know if you're there. I don't know if you hear me, but if you are, if you care, I need you. I can't do this alone. I tried so hard. I failed. His voice broke. The words came in sobs now. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to surrender, how to trust, how to believe in something I can't see or measure or control. But I'm asking, I'm begging, if you can heal me, please. If you can't or won't, then please just take away this pain. Let me die in peace. He cried until he had no more tears, then stayed there on his knees, empty. Somewhere in that emptiness, something moved. Not a voice, not a vision, just a presence. Light as a breeze, but unmistakable. Something that said, without words, I'm here. I always have been. Harrison slept on the floor that night, still kneeling, his forehead pressed against the cold glass. The next few days were the hardest of his life. The pain didn't disappear. In fact, it seemed to get worse. But something had changed. Harrison stopped fighting it, stopped cursing it. He simply felt it, accepted it, whispering with each wave of agony, not my will, but yours. Benjamin kept coming, every morning, without fail. Now Harrison went down to meet him, even when he could barely walk. Even when Carlos practically had to carry him, Harrison went down. They didn't talk much. Sometimes Benjamin prayed. Sometimes they just sat together in silence. But Harrison began to understand something. Benjamin's presence wasn't about words or miracles. It was about witness. It was about showing Harrison that faith wasn't the absence of suffering. It was the choice to trust in the midst of suffering. Why did you never give up on me? Harrison asked one morning, his voice weak. Benjamin smiled. Because God never gave up on me. When I was on the streets, addicted to drugs, sleeping in garbage, he didn't give up. He sent people to pray for me. People who didn't know me. People who had no reason to care. Eventually, those prayers reached me. I couldn't abandon you. It would be betraying everything that was done for me. You were an addict? Heroin. For 15 years. Lost my family. My job. Almost lost my life. But God found me at rock bottom and lifted me up. Not all at once. Slowly. Painfully. But he lifted me up. Harrison looked at Benjamin with new eyes. Not a crazy homeless man. A survivor. A living witness that rebirth was possible. Do you think God will heal me? Harrison asked. Benjamin was quiet for a long moment. I think, he finally said, that God is already healing you. Just not the way you expected. He's healing your heart before your body. If you ask me, that's the more important healing. That night, Harrison had a dream. He was back in Detroit in his childhood home. His father was there, younger, before the factories closed. They were in the backyard, his father teaching him to fix something. An old engine or a broken bicycle. You know, son, his father said in the dream. Not everything that's broken needs to be thrown away. Sometimes it just needs someone willing to fix it. Harrison woke up crying. The change began subtly. So subtly that Harrison almost didn't notice at first. The pain was still there, but it seemed different. Less like a devouring beast, and more like a persistent reminder. He managed to eat a piece of toast one morning without vomiting. Then a bowl of broth. He didn't dare to hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope could crush you more completely than any despair. But then, on a Monday, Harrison realized he had slept through the night, without waking up in pain, without morphine, just deep restorative sleep. He got out of bed slowly, testing his body like it was a strange animal. Everything was working, not perfectly. He was still weak, still emaciated, but working. Benjamin was on the sidewalk when Harrison went down. You're different today, Benjamin said, studying his face. I feel different, Harrison admitted. The pain, it's better. Benjamin nodded, unsurprised. God is working. Or the morphine is finally working again. Benjamin laughed. Maybe. But that's not what you believe, is it? Harrison hesitated. I don't know what I believe. Yes, you do. You're just afraid to say it out loud, because saying it out loud makes it real. If it's real, then you have to change, have to live differently. Harrison sat down next to Benjamin on the sidewalk. He ran his hand through his hair, which had grown wild and unkempt during his months of agony. If God heals me, he said slowly, what will he want from me in return? Nothing you shouldn't give anyway. Which means stop living like you're the center of the universe. Use your wealth for something beyond accumulating more wealth. Remember where you came from and help others get where you are. Harrison was quiet. I don't know if I can do that. You can, Benjamin said firmly, but you have to choose. That afternoon, Harrison did something he hadn't done in months. He called his office. His interim assistant answered, shocked to hear his voice. Mr. Stone? We thought you were... I know what you thought, Harrison interrupted. I need you to arrange a meeting with the board for Thursday. Thursday? But sir, that's in 3 days and... 3 days. Tell them it's urgent. When Thursday came, Harrison stood in the conference room. He had lost almost 45 pounds. His suit hung on him like on a hanger, but he was standing. He was alive. He had something to say. The board members entered one by one, trying not to look shocked at his appearance. Gentlemen, Harrison began, his voice weaker than it used to be, but steady. You've known me for years. You know I'm not a spiritual man, that I don't believe in anything that can't be measured or monetized. They looked at each other, confused. But something happened to me in the last few months. Something I can't explain with logic or science. I was dying. The doctors gave me 3 months. That was 4 months ago. Murmurs around the table. I spent millions trying to buy a cure. Traveled the world. Consulted the best specialists. Nothing worked. Then a homeless man prayed for me. Total silence now. I know how this sounds. I know you're wondering if the cancer reached my brain, but I'm lucid. I'm getting better. Not because I deserved it. Not because I bought it. But because I received grace. Harrison took a deep breath. So here's what's going to happen. Our company is going to establish a foundation. Half of next year's profits will go to it. We're going to fund free clinics, shelters, recovery programs for addicts. We're going to hire people society has discarded. Ex-convicts, homeless people, people with problematic histories, giving them training, jobs, dignity. The CFO stood up. Harrison, this will cost hundreds of millions. Our shareholders, the shareholders will understand, Harrison said calmly. Or they'll sell their shares. Either way, this is happening. He looked around the table. You can vote against me, you can remove me as CEO, but I'm still the largest shareholder. And I'll fight for this in every meeting and every vote until my last breath. Because I realized something. We can't take anything with us when we die, except the lives we touched, except the love we gave, except the hope we spread. After the meeting, Harrison went straight to 7th and Market. Benjamin was there as always. I did it, Harrison said. I told them. And? They think I'm crazy. But they'll do it anyway, because it's the right thing. Benjamin smiled. You're learning. I want to do more, Harrison said. That woman you saved, the one who was hit. Does she have kids? 3, 2 boys and a girl. Is she struggling financially? Medical bills? Benjamin hesitated. I don't know if she'd accept charity. It's not charity, it's justice. She almost lost her life. She deserves a chance to live without worrying about money. Harrison pulled out his phone. Give me her name. I'll take care of everything. Medical bills paid. Trust fund for the kids, everything. Harrison, I want to do the same for you. An apartment, financial support. You don't need to live on the streets. Benjamin put his hand on Harrison's shoulder. Are you doing this for the right reasons? What do you mean? Are you doing this because you really care? Or because you feel guilty? Because you want to balance some cosmic scale? Harrison stopped, thought honestly. Both, I guess. But mostly because if God healed me, if he gave me this second chance, then I have to use it. I can't go back to living like before. Then yes, Benjamin said softly. Let me give you her name. The next week, Harrison visited the woman in the hospital. Her name was Rachel. She was in physical therapy, relearning to walk after her injuries. When Harrison entered, she looked confused. You're Harrison Stone, the billionaire. I am, Harrison said. But I'm not here because of that. I'm here because of Benjamin. Her eyes widened. Benjamin? The man who saved me? He told me what happened. How he used his own rag to stop your bleeding. How he prayed for you. Tears streamed down Rachel's face. I shouldn't be alive. The doctors said it was a miracle. I woke up in the hospital, and the first thing I remembered was his hands on mine, praying. He did the same for me, Harrison said. Now I want to do something for you. Your medical bills, all of them, are paid. I've established a trust fund for your children. Education, housing, whatever they need. Rachel began to cry. Why? You don't even know me. Because someone showed me grace when I didn't deserve it. The only way to honor that is to pass it forward. 3 months later, Harrison went for tests. CT scan, MRI, biopsy. He sat in the oncologist's office waiting, the same room where he had received his death sentence 7 months before. The doctor entered holding a folder. His face was expressionless, the professional mask doctors wear when they have bad news. So? Harrison asked. The doctor sat down slowly. Mr. Stone, I reviewed your tests 3 times, asked 2 colleagues to review them as well. And? There's no cancer, none, 0. The room became very quiet. Is that possible? Harrison whispered. Medically? No. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer doesn't go into spontaneous remission, especially not after it's spread to the lymph nodes like yours had. But your tests are clean. Completely clean. What are you saying? The doctor took off his glasses and cleaned them slowly. I'm saying I can't explain this. Your cancer cells, and they just disappeared. It's as if they never existed. Harrison left the office in a daze. He called Benjamin immediately. They met at the coffee shop where they usually sat now, after Harrison convinced Benjamin to accept at least a temporary apartment. Complete remission, Harrison said, still not believing it. The doctor can't explain it. Benjamin smiled. God doesn't need to explain. I don't deserve this. None of us deserve grace, that's why it's called grace. Harrison took Benjamin's hand across the table. Thank you for not giving up on me, for continuing to pray, even when I sent security guards to remove you, for showing me that surrender isn't defeat. It wasn't me, Benjamin said. It was God. I was just the messenger. Then I thank you both. In the months that followed, Harrison's life changed in ways he never imagined. The foundation he established grew rapidly. Free clinics opened in 3 cities. A homeless shelter was renovated and expanded. Recovery programs for addicts received funding. Harrison was personally involved in everything. He didn't just sign checks. He showed up. He talked to people, listened to their stories, learned their names. He began waking up at 7 not to run but to pray. Not because he had to, because he wanted to, because he had found something more satisfying than any deal he'd ever closed. Benjamin became the foundation's community outreach director. He knew the streets, knew the people. People trusted him in a way they would never trust a billionaire, no matter how well-intentioned. Together, they touched hundreds of lives. People who had been discarded by society found a second chance. Each story reminded them that miracles weren't just about physical healing. They were about restoration, about redemption, about seeing value in lives the world had deemed worthless. Harrison never forgot the bloodstained rags. He kept them, framed on his wall, a permanent reminder that the greatest healing happens when we finally stop trying to control everything and simply trust. Because in the end, it wasn't Harrison's wealth that saved him. It was his willingness to let it go, to kneel beside a homeless man on a cold sidewalk and admit, I need help. In that moment of complete surrender, he found what he'd been searching for his entire life. He found peace. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that true wealth isn't in what we accumulate but in what we give away, leave your amen in the comments. Share this video with someone who needs to remember it's never too late to start over. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of faith, hope, and redemption that can transform your perspective. And you? Is there something in your life you're trying to control but might need to surrender into God's hands? Sometimes the greatest strength is in admitting we don't have all the answers.